My name is Ali Momen, and I play Kevin J and Ali in Come From Away in Toronto.
Tell me more about yourself.
I'm a Libra. I have a dog named Rumi. I went to Sheridan College. I taught at Sheridan College. Yeah, I mean, I've been acting for a long time. I'd say probably professionally 12 years. Stage, film and television, mostly in Toronto, sometime in the States, but predominantly in Toronto, yeah.
When did you first become interested in acting?
For me, it was probably, you know, I didn't really have a performing parenting. I didn't have the parents who were like, you know, pushing me to do that kind of stuff. So for me, it was just, you know, my family would have like these get-togethers, and all the family friends would come, and then I would always put on shows for them. And then this one time in high school, I was in grade 10, and we had karaoke, and there was this girl that I was trying to impress. Her name was Julia Wolno. I'll never forget. And so I sang some Backstreet Boys, and then I had a teacher, a drama teacher named Jamie Graham, who has since passed away, and I always like to talk about him because he was a very seminal and an important person in my life. But he was, I was walking down the halls, and he stopped me and he says, you come here. And he took me into a room with a music teacher. They kind of tested my singing. I didn't really know I was like a good singer at the time. And then he was like, okay, so we're doing this musical called Where's Charlie? And there's an opening. Just for like chorus, you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And then that's, for me, it was just like doing that. I was like, oh yeah, this is good, I like this. But then I went to university, and I studied philosophy because I wanted to go be a lawyer. But while I was in philosophy, the more, because philosophy is a very introspective thing, so the more I went down that road, the more I realized, you know, my true kind of like passion and love is in the arts. So then I went to Sheridan.
Why did you choose Sheridan?
Because I went in the audition, and for every guy there was 4 women. No. No, because I wanted to sing. I mean, I love acting. I think it's like, for me, acting is the thing that I would say I'm the most kind of curious about. But at the end of the day, like, I could sing, and I had another teacher of mine. There's so many great teachers in my life that have been very kind of seminal and important to me. Was like, look, like, you could go to a I'm not going to call it a straight theater program, but like a non-musical theater program. But what you're going to do is you're going to go there and you're going to miss not singing. And that's something that you should probably consider. And he was like, I think for you, Sheridan is probably the place to go. And so far, it seemed like that was the right decision. Yeah, yeah.
And when did you first hear about Come From Away?
I was a faculty member, and they were doing a presentation. So they have this thing, you've obviously spoken to Michael about it, the Canadian Music Theatre Project. And so we went to the Panasonic Theatre, and we saw, I think there was like 3 musicals that they were doing where they were using the students as in a workshop. And I remember seeing Come From Away, the first like 15-20 minutes of something that they were working on. And I literally distinctly remember going like, oh my God, there's something about this has legs. This is really interesting. Like, I feel like I'm in a Newfoundland kitchen party. At the time I was dating a girl from Newfoundland, so it was just like, I was into it. And yeah.
And what were the auditions like?
Auditions, so at the time I was in Berkeley, California. I was doing the musical version of Monsoon Wedding. So I had to send a tape in, and then I had to fly in for a callback. And the callback was with David and Irene, Randy Adams, who's one of our producers, Ian, our music supervisor. Unfortunately, Chris couldn't be there because he was flying in from La Jolla. Something happened, so there was a video camera that they sent to Chris, and Kelly Devine also wasn't there either, which is good because I'm not really that good of a dancer. So if she was there, she'd probably be like, no. Yeah, so that worked out for me.
Did you always want to play Kevin J and Ali?
I think that was the part I was like, I think that's what I'm going in for. Like, I didn't come in there and be like, I think I'm going to be Claude. No. I kind of knew that Kevin J and Ali was probably the part for me. But as time has gone on, and this isn't just because I've done it so many times, I personally think it's the best part of the show because both the characters are in conflict. Both the characters aren't just like, wow, this place is amazing, and they're conflicted about being there. And to be honest, that's good to play. As an actor, you kind of want to be in conflict. You kind of always want to know, like, okay, what do I want, but what's in my way? And they each have things in their way, which is helpful. Yeah, which is good to play.
How do you build a character?
You Google it. I don't know. You build a character. You know, it's
like in this musical, like, did you invent some backstories for them, or?
Well, a lot of these people were based on real people, so you start there. Although Ali is not. He's an amalgamation of a bunch of people. You know, for me, my personal kind of thing is that I don't really know in the beginning. I don't really know yet what happens. And I kind of just allow the repetition of something and the constant going of doing something over and over and over and over and over again to define how the part grows. Because it allows you to like discover things that are in the moment, and then you mark it, as opposed to sitting down before you even start something and writing this big journal about somebody. It's impossible for me to walk in. I used to be, when I was like a student, I used to be like, oh, who is this guy? All this information, I'll write these stories and all this thing about him, and then I'd go on stage, but I still was like, I'd go into the rehearsal and I still wouldn't know what I'm doing. So I said, rather than doing that, let me just be like open to whatever. The other difference is that like we were the second incarnation of this show, so much of it was like already established for us. So it was really about just like doing it and then finding your own version of it. But I gotta say, like, my Kevin J, more my Kevin J than my Ali, has changed exponentially from what it was in Winnipeg to what it is now. I feel it's a totally different person. And that was just through, you just keep doing it and then you kind of find the pocket of things and you go, oh yeah, this is who this guy is. Yeah. And then mostly it takes time to find yourself in all these people. Because at the end of the day, there really is no character. It's just, these are all kind of like, you know, humanity is very large. Like, I as a human being am capable of a lot of things, both good and bad. So for me, it's like, how can I find myself in all these people? So.
Can you tell me more about how Karen J changed over time? Like some examples? Sure.
So you mentioned the humor. When I first did Kevin J, there was this tendency for me to ornament the lines, to be like, haha, isn't this clever? Ain't I being funny? But actually what's interesting is two things happened. The first time Chris came to Toronto, and he's an amazing director. He said something to me, and in that moment I realized that like, I'm off. And I told them before our final dress rehearsal in Toronto, so we did it in Winnipeg and then we were back in Toronto, I said, you know what, I'm throwing it all away and I'm just gonna be myself. I'm just gonna be myself in the part. It's who I am. Whatever, I'm just gonna say the lines and see what happens. And he's like, no, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm like, no, Chris, I gotta change it. So I did that and he goes, yeah, that's it. Go down that path. And the other thing also is, and I don't know any other way to say it, but I was attempting to play gay, as opposed to playing a man who simply loves another man. And that really kind of got in my way. And I say this openly because it's like, that was such a stupid thing of me to do. Yeah. So I just, rather than like playing like, oh, I'm playing a gay guy, I said, no, I'm just playing a guy who is like me, who happens to love another man. And there's nothing wrong, I don't have to like change myself in order for that fact to be true. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all there. So those two things helped. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, I guess, I don't know.
I know that you had a relaxed performance recently. Can you tell me a bit about it?
Oh, that was very beautiful and very, I'm surprised it was the first time they did it, but Basically, we opened up the audience to people with a physical disability, learning disability, and so we had a whole swath and array. But beyond just allowing people with those disabilities to come see the show, it also allowed their families to come see the show too, because you can imagine, you know, if you're a family and you have an individual, let's say with autism, Down syndrome, a handicap of some sort, you think to yourself, oh, I can't go to this show, and then you don't want to. So it was really nice to have all those families there, and also there was. It was really beautiful because there was we had a lady come in and to describe like the kinds the kinds of people you might see in a relaxed performance, and she was talking about autism, and she mentioned that there's a thing that you'll notice is that the emotion is not censored much, and they'll feel if it's, and they'll express it. If it's joyous, they'll express their joy. And if it's sorrow, they will express their sorrow. There isn't that kind of filter and a look around of like, oh, is it okay that I'm feeling this way? And I'll never forget, there was a girl in the front row, and when we did the, when I asked, so what really happened? I just heard there was an accident in New York, that's it. And finally, when we were looking at the TVs, she was wailing tears, and it was so beautiful to see that kind of uncensored humanity. It really moved me. So that was very beautiful. I think sometimes we censor our feelings a little, and it was nice to have to see that kind of abandon in somebody. That was nice.
What's, in your opinion, the most common misconception about being an actor?
That we're poor. Okay. That's actually maybe not a misconception. I don't know, that we have, that this isn't like a career, that, you know, there's a day job out there that we do. There's so many times, you know, where you leave and they're like, okay, so what do you do for money? What do you do for real life? There's also a misconception, of course, that, you know, you're, I don't know, I kind of think people kind of get what being an actor is. To be honest, like, I'm not one of those people, I've always been witness to people like really kind of getting what being an actor is and appreciating what being an actor is, and I think we live in a world where like people love it and get it, and I don't know. Also, every actor is different. Every actor there's a huge swath, just like everything. You know, there are actors who are highly successful, not so successful, successful artistically, not financially, successful financially, but not successful artistically. So, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
What do you wish you knew when you were starting out?
To be patient. Just to be patient. Yeah.
And what was the learning process in Come From Away like? I know that you have this choreography and so many accents.
Mm. The one thing I miss, but in hindsight I've changed my mindset on it, because if I or any of us were there in the beginning, in the process, the show wouldn't be the show that it is. Once you add somebody else or somebody different into the pot, the recipe changes and it comes out completely differently, for better or for worse. This is, to me, a perfect recipe that has come out. So everything that preceded this moment is great. But what that means, though, is that when we got to the rehearsal, it was all done. It was all set. This is where you move. There was no questions, so why should I move here? Because usually when you do a rehearsal, the director's like, where are you going to go? And it's like, Chris, I think I'm feeling moving here. You know, and it's like you have this whole process of like doing it, but it's all good. Caesar did that. Thank you, because he made obviously some really good choices there. So yeah, our rehearsal process very much in the beginning was like, this is where you move the chair, this is where you move, boom, 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 and then finally we got more slowly into the kind of like fleshing out the character. Yeah.
What helps you to memorize stuff?
You just gotta keep on doing it. Oh, actually the most important thing is know why you're saying something as opposed to what you're saying. once you know why you're saying X, Y, Z, you'll remember it because you're reacting to some kind of stimulus as opposed to line. You know what I mean? It works out better that way.
And as you have this ritual on stage, right? Your song.
Oh no, we can't talk about that. That's a private thing. Who told you about this?
Several people.
We'll keep that between us unless they said it on the interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Off record.
Yeah, off record.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to talk about?
No, I mean, I think ultimately it's just, this is a kind of once in a lifetime experience, not just for us who get to do it, but for Canadian music theater. Also, it's kind of a once in a lifetime experience if you consider the fact that there's no chandelier, there's no helicopter. This is 12 actors, 12 chairs, a revolve, some lighting, and a bunch of costume pieces. And look how well it's doing. It just kind of like goes to show you that I think we're in a world so much now where like we have so many screens, whether it's our phones, our watches, our TVs, our movie theaters, and we can get like this kind of entertainment or this kind of escapism that is like really, really of high quality. It's really great. But I think the reason why Come From Away resonates is because there is no possible way to recreate what that show is on a screen. The notion that you come and you see a show, again, as I said, with just 12 actors, 12 chairs, a revolve, and some lights, and that these people, all of us as actors, are changing costumes, changing accents, like becoming different people, that can't exist on a screen. That's why I'm looking forward to the movie, because I want to know how they do it. Because I'm just like, how are they going to do this? Because I think one of the reasons why this show resonates so much is because of how theatrical it is. It is like theater at its like pinnacle. And it can't be done any other way. Oh, sorry, in any other form. It just can't. Like this, yeah.
The last question?
Yeah.
What was it like to perform in Newfoundland?
It was great. Yeah, I mean, it was great to be there. It was great to understand a lot of things. It was great to hear the accents. It was great to like meet the people. And I remember we were at this house party, and we were leaving. We were going to go back to the hotel, and there was a crew of us there. And all of a sudden, this guy starts talking to us. He's like, "Hey, where are you guys going?" I was like, "Oh, we're going home." He's like, "Oh, I'm going to a party. You want to come?" I was like, no, but thank you so much. Like, you can't. That doesn't happen in Toronto. In Toronto, you don't go with that guy. But in Newfoundland, you're like, yeah, if I wanted to, I'd probably go with that guy. So that kind of spirit is kind of there. Yeah.
Did you feel more pressure? Because it's about Newfoundland and you performed there.
Yeah, I think there was this pressure, of course. I think, it was weird. My view of it was interesting doing that show there. And having them applaud us, because I kind of view that we should be applauding them because it's their story, their culture, and I am personally so grateful that that they exist. So in a weird way, I wish we could have done that. But if they enjoyed themselves and they had a great time, then that's it. What can you do? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This is the end of the interview.